All praise to the most high creator and sustainer of life for one more sunny day. And it is a warm one out here. So I'm going to try to get through this without rushing through it, but it is very warm in here. A sad day for me. I want to apologize to the creator. I want to apologize to my wife, Annette. I want to apologize to my son, Marquise. I want to apologize to my brother-in-law, Kenneth, for a bad situation that I created that has caused some financial setbacks. And the worst part is what this has done to my wife's psyche. So as you pray especially for my wife, my son, and my brother-in-law, in whom I have invited into this somewhat dire situation. However, God is good. Thank you for being here today, and thank you always for whatever service you bring to the community that you're a part of, the community that you live in. And especially thanks to those of you who are believers. Now, I say that not to be discriminatory, but because there are lots of people who do not believe. And that's what I'm saying. When you believe, that puts you in a different category than those who do not believe. Now, what you believe, I don't know, but you believe in some almighty power. Blessings all around to everybody, according to the will of the Creator, according to the will of God. And I've said time and time again that my understanding of who God is not exhaustive, but it's inclusive to the point of who gave me my first heartbeat. Hello, it is Saturday, May 10th, 2025, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Welcome to Church Talk Unlimited with James Paul Berry. If you have ever read the description of the videos that I have posted over the last 4.5 years, you will notice that I fight for the support of the poor, especially poor believers. And hello, brother, good to see you. And I say sort of that with tongue in cheek, poor believers, because I am somewhat of an elitist in terms of believing, because the things that Jesus taught, I take them for face value. So when I say the word poor believer, it's a misnomer to me. It doesn't make sense, because as a believer, our Father owns and controls everything. As theologians say, he is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. So how could I be a poor believer? But then Jesus said, you have the poor with you always. And he was talking to believers. Anyway, I'm glad that you all are here. I hope you're doing well. I hope you are a believer, and not in a God that we have created, but in a God that has created us. For a brief while, I want to talk about the question, why do churches collect money continuously? And I'm not trying to throw any shade on churches because they collect money, or any organization that collect money, especially in the name of Christ. But I just want to throw around the question, why do churches collect money continuously? In the book of Acts, in the early church, the money that they collected initially in the writings that I have read was for a particular purpose, for a particular group that was in need. And there were people who ended up needing things, necessities, every day. There are more than 150 million plus churches on the planet. I don't know if they all collect money, but some do. And it's a mystery to me as to why. Maybe it's not my business, but I'm a believer and my Father owns everything, so I can ask anything that I want. I may not get the answer that I want. And I also am an American. I have free speech, which does not mean that anyone will accept what I speak. I may have to suffer as a result of what I speak, but I have the right to speak. Why do churches collect money continuously, those that do? And I'm asking this generically in general. If you have an answer, I'd love to hear. Evening, brother, and blessings to you. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. I think it would be an interesting conversation and an interesting array of answers. And my answer is, I don't know. However, I'm going to bring up some reasons that could be why churches collect money continuously. I've never discussed this at any length with anyone other than looking at the negative side where the pimping comes in and the discrimination, the elitism and the classism that goes on. But looking at it from a real reason, why could it be that churches collect money continuously? One thing could be a mortgage. If a church, particularly if a church is less than, I say 30 years old, they may have a mortgage to pay. Or if their church is less than 60 years old, they may have gotten a second mortgage. Operating expenses, whatever it takes to keep the place from falling down, whatever licenses that are needed, visiting ministers, staff, salaries, insurance, vendors, and ministries. It's amazing to me that some church folk cringe when you even mention spending church funds on individual members. Let me ask you another question. Do you know that's where it came from in the first place? But it is perfectly fine for church members to dig deep into their pockets to give, but not to receive. Now, Paul said in Acts 20:35, it is more blessed to give than to receive. If you receive every week, what's more blessed then? To give it away or to receive it? Unless you have received it for a particular purpose. So mortgage, operating expenses, possibly visiting ministers, staff, insurance, vendors, and ministries. But what about when all of those things have been taken care of, and particularly the mortgage? You know, when you have paid your mortgage off and you burnt your papers, and now you just maintain. There's a lot of money going through many of these 150 million churches. An old calculation I did in my first year of this podcast is 700 members who gave $20 each week for 30 years. So that would be 700 members, each gave $20, 52 weeks for 30 years, 700 members. That equaled, are you sitting down? 700 members who gave $20 each for 52 weeks for 30 years equal $21,840,000. Now that's just one 700 member church. Why do churches collect money continuously? I don't think that most of the leaders of the churches who control and handle the money across the board, I don't think they intend to go astray. But I think when they start trying to act according to what we consider the ways of the world with how they handle, as they say, God's money, I think that's where they go wrong. I don't see why would your church not be there for you and you've been there for it, and the it being the church and the church being you anyway. What does the church, I could see if the church gave money to people who were wasting it, or to people who were not even supporting the church, had never supported the church, but I'm talking about those who have helped the church to become what it is, because I know there are many definitions of the word church. This is one of my books right here, this American Heritage Dictionary. So one of the definitions of the church would be the place where the church meets, where the people meet. But I'm not talking about the building. The building has been taken care of. How do we reconcile keeping an immaculate building and a ragged church, which is us? Why do churches collect money continuously? Something to think about. As I said, I don't think it's a sin, but I think the money could be used in a more exhaustive way. I think it should be used. And you know, as I said earlier, on this channel, I fight for the poor, especially the poor in the church, the poor believers, to make sure if they can't do it, that their leaders make sure. If they don't have family, if they're widows, and of course we try to follow the Bible as close as possible, but if they don't have what they need, that the leaders of the church, of the churches, will make it their business to make sure that every member of the church has enough food, water, clothing, transportation, education, visitation, and any other thing that is necessary, if it means using the last penny that belongs to God. Why are we afraid to use what God has given? Until next time, I wish you all the things that you need. Thank you, brother. I hope you have a wonderful evening.